But hey, elders, can we proceed?
Yes.
Yes.
Give thanks, give thanks, give thanks. So, yeah, like Ras said, in 2021, he asked me to share the 2022 visions, right?
That was 2020.
It was 2020. Wow.
And you shared the 2021 vision.
2020, I'm time warping, y'all. Excuse me. Right. It was 2019 when I was last down here with y'all.
It was 2020.
You were here 2020.
And you were sharing the 2021 vision.
That's right. All right. I'm going to get it right. I was down here a couple years ago.
Don't hold him accountable.
Right?
What?
Yeah, and Ross was like, yeah, come again, please share 2023 visions first here in Columbia. So it is an honor. I'm thankful y'all came out, wow, these have been some years, 2020, 21, 22, these have been some years. And I really don't expect too much less from 23, Yeah. So what I'm saying, to be forearmed, to be forewarned is to be forearmed, And the thing about astrology doesn't compel our life, but it does impel. Meaning, if we don't consciously use our free will to create the reality we want, astrology may tell us what we might just fall in, what might just randomly happen if we're not conscious co-creators of our reality, right? So I avoid the term casting and forecasting, right? But these are visions. If we say, as above, so below, right? What's going on in the heavens is going to correspond with what may manifest here, right? This is the gift astrology gives us. It gives us an opportunity to reflect on how the folds and creases of time may be moving us through space, So this is gonna be an interesting year, and I have to kind of speak on why tonight, because this is one of the first times since I've been doing these reasonings that I would have to say the artificial manipulation of time may really have a big impact on how the year goes down, right? I'm out of Philly. I'm sure everyone has heard of the Philadelphia experiment, right? You might not have a fullness of it, but this is a good time to study it and learn about it, all right? And we are going to talk about it some. But just generally speaking, the Philadelphia experiment was like the Army's first successful attempt, the Navy specifically, yes, to manipulate the fabric of space-time, right? And we'll talk about why that's going to be relevant in 2023 and why we got to pay attention. But that plus another big shift that's occurring celestially, the planet Pluto, which those that are students of astrology, Pluto is the farthest out and the slowest moving planet, right? So when Pluto changes a sign, which occurs about every 17, 18 years, it's a slower cycle, right? Subtle but profound change occurs. So when I was just meditating on like what's 2023 looking like, it is going to be a pivotal year. It's going to be a pivot in time. I think when we end 2023, we're going to be like, wow, a lot of changes occurred, right? And when I say that, I mean even compared to like 2020 and post-pandemic, how a lot of change occurred in them years, right? But we might even be in for more change. And how that manifests in your life again is like, as much of a student of astrology as I am, I take full responsibility for my reality. You know what I'm saying? I don't leave it up to the heavens to determine my fate. And I just use the heavens more as a celestial roadmap, stopwatch, so I can make my moves at the right time. And hopefully, you know, this message will be received with that same intention by y'all. Ashe? Yes, I give thanks. So I mentioned the Philadelphia experiment. A lot of people are experiencing the Philadelphia experiment today as something they call the Mandela effect. All right? Where like they was on one timeline that they remembered, right? And then something changed. Who is not familiar with the so-called Mandela effect? Everybody's familiar with it, right? You kind of familiar with it? All right. Well, what are some of the examples they use? Like published the Bearstein Bears.
Oh,
You know?
he went there.
Yeah.
Straight to the roof.
Yeah. Where I remember Berenstein. I don't remember no Berenstain. And I homeschooled my youth. I had a whole shelf. Shelf of Berenstein Bears, you know? And one that always comes to my mind is Publishers Clearinghouse and Ed McMahon. If you raw search that thing now, they're going to tell you that thing never existed. There was never no thing of Publishers Clearinghouse, Ed McMahon going and ringing doorbells and handing out checks. You know? Yeah. They now, this timeline we're on now, they say that thing never happened.
I heard the scene related to people passing, transitioning. They show you like some years ago, somebody transitioned and come back and tell you they just transitioned.
Well, that's the thing with Nelson Mandela. That's why they call it the Mandela effect. Because one of the first people that kind of was like, hold up, something
don't add up.
Something ain't adding up. She had remembered Nelson Mandela transitioning, but then she experienced his funeral a second time, right? But see, this is the problem with naming it Mandela effect. When we say blank effect, that blank is the cause of whatever you're dealing with, right? Like the placebo effect. You take a sugar pill, but you were told it's aspirin. And so you take this placebo, but then your headache goes away. It was the placebo that caused that, right? Then you got the butterfly effect. This idea that if a butterfly flaps its wings, it sets off a chain of events that might coalesce into a hurricane.
On the other side of the earth.
On the other side of the earth, right. So usually, like I say, when we use that phrase, blank effect, whatever it is, that thing is the cause. We already said Nelson Mandela, that he was an effect of a manipulation of time. Nelson Mandela don't have no time warping technology down in South Africa pushing buttons, changing timelines, right? He's not the cause of it. He was his remembrance of his passing is one of these time manipulation effects. So if we call it Mandela effect, it's like what they say, a misnomer. And you're always going to be confused. It's always going to sound like some folly business because Nelson didn't do it, right? If you want to talk about this phenomenon in a way that it's the name is clear, it's not a misnomer. So now we could maybe understand really what's going on. You have to call it the Philadelphia experiment effect, because it was these manipulations of timeline by the Navy that got us all like, what timeline are we on? Right? I heard Naeem earlier say time is relative. It really is. We all experience time different, right? But usually we all have an anchor on which I guess we will call it like our natal timeline, right? Where you got some memories from when, like your first memories, and that timeline leads you up to where we are in the present, right? So something has happened. They've used technology in a way that they've been able to manipulate space-time, right? We got to study this thing. We got to know what it is, because it's becoming 2023 is a year it's going to become relevant, right? Going to need to be able to articulate this thing to people, help them understand because if you get thrown off your natal timeline too much, what's going to happen?
You lose your mind.
You're going to lose your mind. And aren't we witnessing that on just like a societal community level? People a little, who's grounded in their original timeline and making wise decisions based on that. We're seeing it less and less. So this is going to be relevant this year. Why? Because this is how that thing went down. The Philadelphia experiment occurred August 12th, 1943 in Philadelphia, the southern cusp of the 40th parallel, right? And I guess we could characterize it as like a catastrophic success, because they were able to like blow a hole in the fabric of space-time, create strong enough magnetic fields that the fabric of space itself was kind of peeled back, and you can move across any timeline, right? But certain people, if you research, and there's a couple of films on it, check it out. As a matter of fact, I would highly recommend you check out the Philadelphia Experiment 1 and the Philadelphia Experiment 2. Because when you see the second Philadelphia Experiment 2, they're showing this Philadelphia Experiment. What happens in the second movie is this idea that, hey, some people are on this timeline, but they remember like, it didn't go down like this. You know what I mean? But everyone else is like lynched out on this artificial timeline, behaving crazy. So I highly recommend y'all watch both of those films. Okay? But like I say, it was a catastrophic success. They did it, but certain people fell in the space-time hole, right? When the ship dematerialized and rematerialized, people got stuck in shit, because everything became energy. They, the ship, everything, because you know we all are molecules, right? Everything became an energetic field. But then when the ship came back, depending on where you were, your arm might be in the bulkhead of the ship now, right? But because they had this space-time is a, what do you say, like a self-contained system. You know, it's like a torus, a 3D circuit. And now they've been blown a big hole in this self-contained system. So everything was falling apart. Like even just on a physical level, the earth, there was just some things going on that these scientists, like they knew they had to do something, but what was that? So what they decided was they was going to create a 40 by 40 closed space-time loop, right? 40 years in time, and in space, the 40th parallel. So they recreated the same experiment August 12, 1983 in Montauk, New York. I've some people dropped on me this now I haven't been able to really keep up with it. But my children have put me onto it. This show, Stranger Things. Stranger Things is supposed to be about Montauk, New York. All right? Where they recreated the Philadelphia experiment, right? Opened up another hole in the fabric of space-time, and then they connected the two to make it a closed loop. So they got this 40-year, from 43 to 83, right? So in time, it's 40 years, and in space, it's the 40th parallel. The Philadelphia experiment occurred right on the lower cusp of the 40th parallel, 39.9 degree, right? And Montauk is right north of the 40th parallel, right? The beginning of the 41st degree. And from this 40 by 40 hole in the fabric of space-time, this is what they've been manipulating. They've been, you know, like, let's say my brother right here, they find out my brother right here got the magic formula to dismantle Babylon, right? They find that out. What they want to do, they want to attempt to go back in time and take out his ancestor, right? So you're not even born, right? But then the problem becomes you make one change that you calculate, right? There's always going to be a change you didn't calculate, right? And so this is all this, why we're experiencing this weird, like, what timeline are we on, right? But y'all, I'm sure a lot of y'all already are doing the mathematics to see why this is going to be relevant in 2023, because this thing is on a 40-year rhythm, right? And the last one was August 12, 83, right? So August 12, 2023, they're going to flip the switch again. This might, you know, they're going to flip that switch again. Okay? So there's going to be some manipulation of the fabric of space-time in 2023, right? To reaffirm that, this guy right here, Geordie Rose. Is anyone familiar with this character? This is the innovator of the D-Wave quantum computer. Okay, y'all are familiar with the quantum D-Wave computer, right? All right, you know it's next level computing, where quantum computing, they don't calculate an answer. It's like these quantum computers finds the timeline, finds the interdimensional reality where the answer exists, and then moves us into that reality. That's how this is called quantum entanglement, right? I'm not going to get all deep in it. I'm going to leave that for y'all to do, but I want to share these predictions Geordie Rose made when he rolled out the quantum computer. So, and this is online. Y'all can check it, this speech is online. You should check it out. You got to hear the fullness of what he's saying. But I'm going to just point out the first two predictions. He said, prediction 1, by 2018, NASA will find a planet approximately 40 light years from Earth using quantum computers. Okay? So like I say, they don't do no mathematics like binary computers that calculate. They find the reality where, we already knew there was this planet 40 light years away, and then we move on to that timeline. So this prediction has already been fulfilled. In 2017, and look at the mathematics, 222, how we in 2022, right? But February of 2017, they found 3 Earth-like planets described as being just under 40 light years away. So his first prediction has already come true, right? His second prediction, by 2023, a major breakthrough in physics will occur based on a model whose cornerstone is the reality of parallel universes. This is what I'm talking about, right? An experiment will be performed on a quantum computer that will support the new theory. So he's telling us they already got this thing lined up because they know one thing I didn't mention, why that 40-year interval was chosen is because the Earth has a natural 40-year rhythm within its magnetic field. And they're like riding on that. So the man is telling us they're going to use quantum computers in 2023 to perform an experiment that's going to prove the existence of parallel universes. That plus knowing the cause of what we're experiencing as the Mandela effect, right? These 40-year experiments. The first one started in 1943, next one in 83. His prediction is a smoking gun. It's them, they telling us what they're going to do. So we want to stay grounded this year, right? Keep your pyrite on you. Keep your grounding, your black tourmalines, your shungites, right? Don't be untethered and demagnetized, right? Particularly August 12th, be on the earth, like literally, like be sitting on the earth, be grounded, because there's going to be some energy change, right? And I'm not sharing this to be fearful because, you know, the mad scientist is just that. He don't know what I'm doing. He don't know what I'm doing from one experiment to the next. And there's always something he can calculate. But, you know, what Ras say, infinite treasures. There's some infinite, incalculable dimensions to us and creation that, you know, we can't calculate. So we do want to be in our intuitive mind. Because, like, do I have the answer for you or for you to say, like, do this, do that? Nah, but you have the answer if you put yourself in the position to receive it, you know? So I'm not sharing this thing to be fearful because I was told it's by their own hands that Babylon is going to bring about their destruction, right? So they're going to do what they're going to do, right? And we could be aware of it and not be on a fear factor, you know? But what it does say is right. This is a year to get your spiritual works in, you know? So that's one reason it's a major pivot in time. August 12th, 2023. You got to be ready. And like I say, I feel like if we do our works within ourselves, for our families and our communities, yeah, we might witness something pretty amazing, right? They tinkering around and then bam, you know?
Funny, that's a gateway day too. 8/12. That's 11.
Yes, all right. So before we get into Pluto shifting into Aquarius, I just want to review what we said about 2022. All right. I like to start the year because, like I say, that Philadelphia experiment thing, that's like an artificial manipulation. And artificial manipulation of time. I've never had to like reason on nothing like that in sharing a vision of a year, right? But we usually start with a review of what we said year prior, right? So we could move from there. And I will say, not tooting my own horn, but from 2020, I've been hot and popping. You know, I don't know if y'all been watching. You know, I don't know if you've been watching them. They on YouTube. You can go and like I called 2020. You know, I called that thing like bam. And I would say, you know, from 2020 on up. You know, we said 2022 we was going to get a glimpse of grace. That we was going to get a glimpse of grace from what we were dealing with in 2021, which was basically the impersonal becoming personal, the impersonal controls of society. Not your boss or you're a parent or some authority figure, but just the collective, an impersonal control. Everyone got a cell phone, so what you gonna do? You gonna get a cell phone. Who in here did someone tell, like come to you and say, get a cell phone? It's gonna give you cancer. It's gonna make it easy to surveil on you. It's gonna be hitting your pocket for hundreds every month. But go and get a cell phone. Nobody told you to do that, to put yourself in that position, to have this toxic technology on your hip all day. But who in here don't have a cell phone? That's an impersonal control of society, right? 2021 was a big year for that. with the pandemic thing. That thing was crazy. Everybody, you had the like, you know, they had Australia basically had a lockdown war. Armed people rolling up on you. You know, are you hokeyed or not? You got that pokey or not, right? I just heard, so I saw my good brethren in South Florida who had just recently had to leave his job because he was like, I ain't getting that pokey. You know, these was the things we was dealing with in 2021, this impersonal controls of society, right? We said we was going to get some grace from that in 2022 because of Jupiter and Pisces, right? And I'll tell you where I think the grace came from when I look back on it. That, what they call it, the Omicron, the moronic.
Moronic, that's it.
The moronic.
The moronic.
The moronic Omicron, when that thing came, like, you know, here's what I say, Babylon, they be bubbling up their stuff, but then it don't work like how them think, right? Because they bubbled up that Omicron moronic one, and that thing flew through the community, but it was light. So then everybody caught their immunity. Everybody was like, yeah, this thing is like the flu. I ain't getting all tripped out over that. I ain't wearing a mask and doing this and doing that. I'm just going to free up. And that's what happened. I don't know what y'all think. You know? So the moronic is what actually brought us our grace in 22. It was about a year ago, about this time, about Christmas time. 21, right? Kwanzaa season, 21. That thing was run. I got it. I didn't know nobody who didn't get it. That thing was just running through households. But it was mild. It wasn't like ones you might witness with the other coroner pandemic concoctions, you know? So we said because of Jupiter and Neptune at home in Pisces on personal levels, each one of us was going to be dealing with issues of atonement and redemption, witnessing full circle karma in our lives, as well as instant karma, like somebody wilding out, bam, you just witnessed the judgment unfold right before your eyes. We was going to see intervention, divine and angelic. Piscean people receiving a lot of ashe and works in 22. Dreams. And really, I should say visions, right? Because when we dream, we're asleep, but like our visions, we want for ourselves, manifesting, and us being able to clear up like our deluded intentions. Sometimes we might want something, right? But it ain't good for us. It ain't good for our family, right? It'd be better if you ain't got it.
Okay.
Right? That's called a delusion. When that's like, I want that. I'm focused on this. But it'd be better if you didn't have it. That's called a delusion. This year, hopefully, you've worked through some of that. Your vision going into 23 should be more grounded in things that, you know, have redemptive, atoning qualities to them, you know? I will say there was a lot of spiritual warfare in 22, right? Why? Because, as my brother Naeem said, goodness is going to cover the earth like water covers the sea. And this is like Jupiter and Neptune, that they bring that in, right? So there's always going to be a polar opposition for those who, whatever intention, they don't want to see that. You know, they're not going to be able to profit off of that, right? And a lot of revelations. This is what we said was going to be big themes of 2022, you know? We said 2022 was going to kind of be like 2019. Because 2019, Jupiter was in another sign that it rules, Sagittarius. And 2019 ended. If y'all were like me, I started 2020 full of optimism.
That's right.
With a lot of opportunities and open portals. Before the pandemic,
That's right.
before they jumped that off, right? We said 2022 was going to echo 2019 because Jupiter was in its ruling sign, right? But it was going to be on a real interesting timetable. That everything was really going to jump off early in the year. By May, you had like whatever spiritual works, spiritual visions, atoning, redemptive things you wanted to get it in, you had to get it in early. Because Jupiter was going to go retrograde. It was going to be a big deflation. When Jupiter goes retrograde, it's like you take the pen and pop the balloon. The party's over. You know? And what I see, what I call deflation, really manifested as that inflation. Like the economic, because when there's inflation, the value of things, our money don't go long, right? So, yeah, we said by May 10th, you had to get it in. Get it in before May. And yeah, I know my reality deflated a lot this summer. You know, June, Jupiter went retrograde. Jupiter just went direct. What day? The 4th of November. And here we are. You know, it just went direct. And Jupiter is going to start the year at 1 degrees Aries. So we're going to talk about that, you know. Some other things we said to look for in 22. The moon was conjunct the galactic core. We said God and angelic influences from within ourselves may sway international relations. And we see that war has been popping, right? Threat of nuclear war. What's keeping them from escalating at things? The prayers of the people, the intentions of the people. So we got to keep our prayers up. We have to pay attention to world affairs. There's overtones of that coming up in 23. But 22, we was like, yo, you know, don't undervalue yourself, right? Our thoughts, our prayers, they do weigh in the balance, okay? You said Mars in the 8th house of Sagittarius may impel international tension over resources. We know that Ukraine thing's all about oil, right?
Shungite.
And fanatical opinions will have influence on how resources are exchanged. And we see that happening, how the politics is getting radical, right? But ultimately, it's all about control of resources. If you go forward to 2020, one of the things we said was going to jump off April of 2020 was the global resource reset. Be right in the middle of that thing. Okay, it's still jumping off. Where Pluto was at the beginning of 2022, corporations and oligarchs were going to be able to have more influence on our lives than our elected officials, than government. And we see that happening, even with this thing with Kanye, right? Where, and Twitter and Elon Musk and all of these corporations putting their finger on certain ones. We're going to talk more about that because that's going to be a very relevant theme this year. What we would call, what my brethren Aki Becca termed, the relative persecution ratio, right? Where someone, let's say you make your money with PayPal, right? You got small business, you're doing your thing, and you make your money with PayPal. Someone on PayPal can see your YouTube and be like, and they even made this policy and had to rescind it. But someone at PayPal could watch your YouTube and be like, I don't like this character. I don't like what he for whatever reason, I don't like what they're saying. And they can push a button and jam up your money, right? But let's say, okay, PayPal, you push my button, but that's all right because I got Cash App or whatever. So where it might take one person one button, it might take another person 5 or 6 buttons. But we all have a relative persecution ratio where they could cut off aid to you and let you know with an economic button they can conquer you, So the relevancy of that started in 22, but it's even going to grow as Pluto moves into Aquarius. Health in 2022. Where's Endel?
I think he stepped out.
Oh, wow, because the brethren was just saying how he knew multiple people who had to get ankle surgery this year, right? And he thought, he was like, that's sus. How are these people all of a sudden getting ankle injuries? But we said, look, you had 3 powerful planets impacting our knees, ankles, and feet in 2022. Pluto on our knees and shin. Pluto's where Pluto's pressure bust pipe. Pluto's the volcano. If something's going to erupt on your body, a boil, a blood vessel, right? That's Pluto putting pressure on our knees. Saturn on our ankles. Saturn is the constrictor. It's the limiter, right? And Jupiter inflames. Jupiter expands. Jupiter in the feet, gout. Swelling, thank you, edema. This was going to be, I know my feet went through it this year. I'm a Pisces. All this thing added up, my feet was going through judgment this year. So, of course, Sindel wasn't here. When I heard him talking. And I was like, I'm not even going to say nothing now. I'm going to just wait to the reasoning. But So, bam, that brings us to, I want to talk about this shift from Pluto moving into Aquarius. It's going to be a long cycle, 21 years. Pluto's moving in April of 2023, and it's going to be in Aquarius until 2044. Okay? So, like we said, astrology only impels, it doesn't compel, right? And we need to use our conscious free will to create the reality we want, right? So this can be an age that we could say at the end of it, wow, the power went to the people. Aquarius is the masses. Aquarius is the collective. Pluto is about power and truth. How do we all use our personal power? Use and abuse. That's Pluto. And what's our relationship with truth? You know, are we lying to ourselves? Are we projecting untruths to others? And then what type of reality do we create when we misuse our power and aren't aligned with truth? Pluto rules all that, right? So if we use our power and truth correctly in this season, we might, in come 2044, we might be saying, yeah, the power's in the people. Give thanks. Or we might, as a collective, find ourselves wrestling with this relative persecution ratio that I was just talking about. You know, the push button society. See, when Pluto was in Capricorn, we always had a figure we could point our finger to and say they're responsible for this, that, and the other going on, whether it was Obama, Trump, or Biden. Because when Pluto, we'll kind of, we're going to do a rewind, but Pluto went into Capricorn around the beginning of the Obama presidency. And all three of them, Obama, Trump, and Biden, are like embodiments of Pluto and Capricorn. Obama being like big brother, right? Like, I'm your brother, I love you, but I'm still jam you up, right? Trump, like the autocrat. Trump ain't care what Congress say. Trump gonna stack the courts. So Trump gonna do what I'm gonna do. And don't nobody tell Trump what to do. You know? He didn't share power. How you got these three branches of government, right? That's the autocrat, the oligarch. Trump was an oligarch. He was, balling millions of dollars, but he's in power, in government power, right? And then Biden, the old feeble man. Capricorn is the old man, right? Pluto's the extremes. This dude is the extreme old man, falling downstairs, right? Just forgetting what he's saying, wandering around. The dude chased the ice cream truck. Who saw that? He heard the ice cream truck and walked off stage following the ice cream truck. You can't make that up. But all three of those archetypes of leadership we saw during Pluto and Capricorn really embody that. Pluto and Cap, But when Pluto moves into Aquarius, we're not going to have that Capricornian authority figure to point our fingers to say, oh, y'all responsible for this. I think what it'll ultimately boil down to, as far as like our life in this upcoming cycle, is what is our relationship to corporations? Is PayPal going to jam you up? Is Twitter's canceled you? Right? So now you can't get your word out or whatever, you know. Corporations are going to have a lot more influence in our life. And it's not going to be any one. I guess ultimately who we're going to have to point the finger at is ourselves for either establishing the relationship with them corporations or then how we play it, you know? So we see that shift already too, though. You know, Pluto's on the cusp. We already are kind of seeing that, you know? Like I said, at the end of, I want to say it was last month, PayPal came out with something like, yeah, if we don't like what you say, we're going to cut off your account. We're going to cut your money.
They fee you $2,500. They can take that directly out of your bank account.
Say that again?
They can take $2,500 directly out of your bank account.
If they don't like what you say.
Yeah.
That's crazy. What's that? How did... But you know what? I didn't read their terms of use when I signed up. I just pushed the button. Who read the terms of use? Which one of y'all did? Carla did. All right. So we're gonna have Carla up here soon to tell us how to work with these characters, you know? Thank you, Mom. Oh, all right. So Pluto and Cap. It was in there for about 15 years. Went in 2008, right? And these are old slides. This was something I made before Pluto went into Cap, just saying like, this is what we may expect when Pluto goes into Cap. Authority figures and sex scandals. Now you know this slide is old. Who knows who this character is? All right. He was married to Troy and got blasted. Got like his ship got blown up. His battleship got blown up. You know? And he was a successful mayor. It was sex scandals that brought him down. This character was Prime Minister in Italy. What was his name? Berlusconi. Thank you. Same thing. Got blown up, right? I'm sure y'all know about Vatigate. Okay? We can't even get into that tonight, but that's why Pope Benedict had to resign. Why we got Pope Francis in there now, right? Sex scandal in the Vatican. And this series right here, this film series, the girl who played with fire, the European versions, not the American. Don't watch the Hollywood version. Don't watch the Follywood version. But the three original ones set in Europe, they dropped the tapes on this whole pedophilia thing, how deep the roots run, how institutionalized and such a part of the fabric of social services and elite life, right? All that came out when Pluto was in Cap and sports. When Pluto was in Sagittarius, which was prior to 2008, athletes was just wilding out. It was getting locked up, punching women. Just athletes were just out of control. He said when Pluto moves into Cap, there's going to be a shift. It's going to be less, because Sag rules the athlete. Capricorn rules the coach. Capricorn rules the team owners. That all the drama was going to shift to the coaches and to the owners, right? Who knows this character?
Andy Reid.
This is Andy Reid in Philadelphia. He had to leave Philly because he had two sons who worked as coaching staff. And the first day of training camp, like in 2009 or 2010, his son OD'd on heroin, right, like first day of training camp. And of course, that just set a crazy ass tone for their year. And after that, Andy was asked to leave. He goes to Kansas City. What happened last year? What happened?
2 years ago,
No, he
Super
won the
Bowl
Super Bowl.
champions.
His son was in a car accident.
Thank you. That's what I was looking for. Who said that? Yannick. Yeah. 2 years ago in Kansas City, his other son got drunk driving, and ran over a child, killed him. Right? Right. Head coach, the owner of Miami Dolphins got caught out there in a massage parlor, getting the happy ending, and Babylon ran up on him, right? It was just a shift away from, those just a couple examples off my head, but there was a shift from,
The Boston Celtics coach got let go.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
First he ain't coaching too.
Right, and his wife was a celebrity. Who's that? Nia Long,
Yeah.
right? How you cheat on Nia Long? Everybody was asking, like, damn, what? You know, with the owner's wife, right?
Right. Yeah.
With the owner's wife. So that's Pluto and Cap. Police scandals concerning misuse of power. We know, right, that culminated with the, what's the boy's name? George Floyd, right. And all that in between, right? That was the biggest, but even the young boy in Florida, what was his name? Trayvon. He wasn't police, but self-proclaimed authority, right? 2211, check that. We talked about this a little already, that we see the corporatization of government, that which is basically what we would call fascism. Corporate sponsored governance is fascism. The roots of fascism run very deep in the United States. I know that's hard for a lot of people to hear, but when you look, if you could go to South Carolina, Columbia, you could go to the state capital here in Columbia and see the fascist bundle of sticks and battle axe adorning the steps and the George Washington statue. Those are fascist symbols, corporate sponsored government. Alexander Hamilton being the biggest advocate of that. If you want to study like an example of government encouraged fascist founding of how this nation runs, study Paterson, New Jersey. Okay? Paterson, New Jersey, Alexander Hamilton set up to, like, hey, you make guns, you can set up in Paterson. Like, you know, we're going to set you up royal, give you tax breaks, this and that and the other. Just help us when we need you, right? And so all of these basically industries, they've grown into, you know, full-fledged industries now. But they started out as businesses, government-sponsored businesses in Paterson, New Jersey, right? Study that. But we said there was going to be major transformations of the nature of government. I thought we were going to see the rise and fall of corporate rule by the end of this cycle. But we just see the rise. Just keep going, you know? It's arisen and about to, like I say, with this shift in the Aquarius, they might just slide government to the side altogether. When I say government, in this context, I'm speaking about elected officials, ones that you decide or the collective decides using their free will who they're going to put in there, who's going to represent us, right? And I know what it is, right? But I hope y'all understand what I'm saying, you know? Some of us, and I will say this, right? Right now we take kind of government for granted. It don't matter who's in office, right? And on levels that's very real. I'm right there with you, right? But by 2044, I don't know, we might look back on government like, damn, that was the good old days. So this is something else that we got. I'll say this thing didn't manifest like I expected, but I think this Ukraine war might be a part of it, where contrived food shortages, contrived resource shortages, right? Such as food and fuel. We already see it with the fuel, right? How it's the war started and suddenly there was a shortage. But I see Ukraine is considered a breadbasket for the world, particularly Asia and Africa. And all I keep hearing, there ain't gonna be enough food. There ain't gonna be enough food if the war continues, right? But actual or manipulated shortages. Because, well, I think y'all got it.
Hey,
Right?
Bridget, you know some of the things that you can't find in the store you can get online? Yeah. That didn't mean just, highlighting the fact that they running games.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
All right, some of these manifestations. Here was another coach, Joe Paterno, the most winningest coach in college football history. University of Pennsylvania, Penn State. And Sandusky and them little kids in the shower on Joe Paterno's watch. So he got booted. Lance Armstrong, the biggest, most accomplished cyclist, his scene got popped, right? Because Capricorn is the best. Those on top, the man in their field, right? We already mentioned the Vatican scandals, the whole corporatization of food, and them GMO in the food, right? 2014, Eric Garland. That's his name?
Garner.
Garner.
Right.
Up in New York, right? This was when the resistance to police really started growing, right? And F the police, you know? And
Right.
Cosby, Bill Cosby was like the ultimate Capricornian. He was, you know, America's father, right? An authority figure. Got caught out there. Doing his thing, right? Or his thing caught up with him.
Didn't it?
His thing caught up with him, right? You had Porngate, which, you know, became Pizzagate, and this whole pedophilia thing becoming something that people taking serious and realizing it's real. Police riots in 2015 in Baltimore, corporate scandals, Volkswagen was just faking moves on their emissions for decades, saying their cars had a certain fuel efficiency and air quality, EPA management, and it was all false, right? And then, but what happened? Slap on the wrist, because why? Pluto and Capricorn, they run teams, right? This was cast of characters caught up in the Pizzagate thing by 2017, and the Weinstein effect jumped off that year, right? Where Weinstein got popped. So it was almost like everyone was getting popped, you know? Having your hands in the cookie jar, right? And this was a Pennsylvania local, but we had state Congress people and Attorney General of the state got locked up. They went to jail. They didn't just get, you know, like, oh, you out of office. You know, they went to jail. And of course, the rise of Trump. The whole corporate scandal, corporate intrigue hit pharmaceutical industry, right? And the real gateway drug was revealed. How many decades? They want to say herb was the gateway drug. They want to say herb was the gateway drug to heroin and this and that. What was it? It was prescription pills. They still dealing with this. Some corporation just paid out billions because they had to, like, their promotion policy. They was pushing these pills that they knew would addict people, right? $2021, that was a big thing, but also too, just the plant, you know, and that thing was, in my opinion, like Pfizer, who sponsored the pandemic. They learned their lesson. You know what I'm saying?
Wasted.
So this is that Pluto and Capricorn, the pandemic survival, right? And now we're moving in. So I guess on one level we could say give thanks, right? Pluto was not easy in Capricorn, right? And like I said, the power is there if we play it right. If we play it right, we might be saying power to the people.
Sure.
Power was to the people in 2044, right? Yeah. Let's hope we're saying power to the people, right? Some of the ways this thing might manifest: Aquarius rules labor unions and unionizing, coming together to speak as one voice, right? We've been, as Pluto's been on the cusp, we've been seeing this, they call it the Great Resignation, right? So many people are quitting. Now workers got more leverage. It's a worker's market right now, right? You could call your labor. You could call your salary. You could demand certain perks just because of where the labor market is. But that thing might even evolve to labor unions. I should have said labor unions re-empower. Because labor unions used to have a little juice prior to Reagan. If y'all remember, Reagan came in, destroyed the air traffic control union. And the way he did it is shook up labor relations and caused a lot of other labor unions to either collapse or get disempowered, right? So now, this is what they call y'all? What is South Carolina? Aren't y'all, what they call it?
Right to work.
Right to work. What is that?
Right to don't work.
Yeah, the right to work means,
Fired.
that means,
Will say.
that's the law. That's some word flip. They flipping it. Like you got a right, but what it means is they set it up for you not to join the union. Long and the short. They made it like the union's a problem. Right? And I know unions have their corruption. Unions have their, like they not the total solution. But I'm sure if we were to study history, when unions were strong, people were living better. Like my 50-something years on the planet, that's what I've observed. The idea of collective bargaining, even if it's not an official labor union, one's being able to come together on a community level, societal level, and say, hey, this is what we want, right? Actual revolutions. Aquarius is ruled by Uranus. So we might see, we say overthrows of government, changes of power, not through election or protocol process, right? The whole idea of hierarchical governance, where there's a big man on top talking to, telling everybody below what to do, it might be a leveling. So it's not like someone isn't saying what should be done, but it might be a peer-to-peer thing. Okay? So, I would say this is a good time to get involved in local politics. Maybe not national, but if you leverage yourself so that you're a voice in your community, as Pluto moves into Aquarius, you might be thankful. I would never think me myself want to be in that arena. But some conscious-minded ones in the community, particularly ones with integrity and innocence of intention, if they make the moves, we got to support them. So we have a voice. I already mentioned this. Peer-to-peer empowerment and governmental powers minimized. But these are some other ways. This is the flip side. It's never all good. It's never all bad. It's like a mix, right? But what they call surveillance capitalism. So they say we free, right? Aren't we in the land of the free? Right?
Right?
But how free can you live in a society of surveillance capitalism where there's no more cash, so every transaction you make can be accounted for by someone else? Real time, in the moment, right? Where they got a camera every X amount of blocks, where you got this thing on you with all these apps you ain't read the terms of use to, and they ask you for access to your mic and your camera, and for you to use that app, you just said yes, right? And the developer of that app is selling all of your information to the FBI and the CIA, right?
Brother, I'm sure I'm not the only one, but I've had conversations where after having the conversation and looked at the phone, I saw an advertisement relative to the conversation.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Real time.
Yes.
So how free can you be in surveillance capitalism? This thing's going, like right now, we're not really feel, we're aware that damn, these things is going on in our life, that this is like a dimension in our life, but most of us probably feel like it's not jamming up our freedom yet. Right? This is the possible flip side. Right along with that is this blockchain token economics. To me, the name says it all. I don't want to be chained to no block. Right? And I know a lot of people advocate that currency, the Bitcoin, and all them cryptocurrencies. Thank you. I'm going to avoid it to the very last minute.
They're crumbling.
I'm going to avoid it to the very last minute, to the last second. I'm going to avoid it. You know? Because ultimately, with how it's been explained to me, the ultimate issue with it is that it's programmable money. So if they're like, I don't like you, brethren, you be talking too much, you influencing the youth in ways we not feeling, we just gotta limit you. They could program your money so you can only spend it in one neighborhood. Or program your money so you can't get no transportation. Uber ain't gonna work for you. Except out of your Uber driver might say something like, yeah, your money's no good outside of Colombia. Right? Someone will be, again, going back to what we say, this relative persecution ratio, where someone can sit in their office, or it might even be AI. It might not even be a person, right? But somebody, something, I don't like you. I don't like how you stay. And then push some buttons, and now you jammed up. Don't put yourself in that position where you blocked on the chain. Avoid this thing. That's what I would say. And personal controls permeating the community. We said 2022 is a glimpse of grace. And we know they got that pandemic thing locked and loaded. Even though the moronic thing came through and gave us some grace in 22, my lady works at a health food store, right? And one of the things they had to do for the pandemic was install these things on the door where you're gonna have to like scan or be scanned to get into to a food store.
What?
And of course she paid, she ain't say nothing. She just cleaning, you know, spooked by the door, but she paying attention to this thing. So, right, if we on that blockchain and they put this, they got the pandemic resurrected, they come out with whatever's after moronic, right? And because that was the pretext for them installing this technology, right? Robot policing. I'm not down with the defund the police thing. If you ask me, okay? Who's ultimately behind that agenda? The robot maker, the robot builder, the drone builder. And because the one thing about police, it is local control. It's not, you know, federal police ain't running things. It's like people in your community, people in your neighborhood. I know there's problems with police. I'm not minimizing or overlooking the problems, right? I'm just saying the solution that people are throwing out there, there might be an agenda attached to it, right? And that agenda might not be in our best interest.
They'll make sure it go from bad to worse, so they can step in and save the day again.
Exactly. And they told us this a long time ago. When did they tell us this? Who uses the language of film and knows RoboCop?
Yeah.
RoboCop. Detroit was off the chain. And some corporation was like, we want to create a obedient robot. Right?
Right.
And even corporate sponsored communities. Right now, corporations are sponsoring stadiums. Like in Philly, everything's getting bought up. Every subway station is sponsored by a corporation. The stadiums. I'm sure it's happening everywhere, right?
Everywhere.
Corporations buying up one day, corporations might own our communities. What's that going to mean? Are they going to be creating policies that will weed out people they don't want? You know what I'm saying? So this is the flip side of things we might see with this Pluto and Aquarius. And it ultimately all feeds into that relative persecution ratio we was talking about, right? And again, the big difference from Pluto and Aquarius with Pluto and Cap. When Pluto was in Cap, there was someone we could point to and say, you are responsible, you know, you signed this bill or you did this and that, I can hold you accountable. When Pluto's in Cap, it might be harder to say who's accountable other than ourselves, you know. So it's going to be a deep scenario to be in. All right. Y'all with me?
Yeah.
All right. Some other finer notes about 2023. This is the 2023 chart, right? You set it for 12 noon on January 1st. So when the sun is at its zenith, we look at the day, right? Because we would say this is a microcosm of the year. Okay, the zenith of the first day. And so one thing that stands out before we even get into the planetary placement is that there's no squares or oppositions amongst the planets. Last year we had that, which I think was 2019, maybe. What was the year? It was 2019. We said that year was going to be very synchronistic. It was going to feel like if we took one step, the omniverse, we took one step in one direction, the omniverse would, take 2 steps to us, right? Things would just be lining up. And on levels, I've kind of been on that motion in general, but I think 2023, it might be again like 2019, where it's like, wow, things is magical in my life. Things is popping, right? So we got to be able to work our magic, work our magi. They say the magi magnifies the magnificence of his or her imagination magically, right? So we want to stay magnetic. Get your magnetic stones, your magnetized hematite, your prophecy stones. We got prophecy stones in the house. All right? We got some prophecy stones today, like Jim Show. Give thanks. Don't take it for granted. Stay magnetized as much as possible. Keep the fear, anxiety out of your heart chamber.
That's right.
Love, productive emotions, gratitude.
First and foremost.
Yeah. These things, we got to keep it in our heart. You can't be on, like, the magi can't be manifesting if they scared or ungrateful. It don't work. Or the reality the magi is going to create for themselves with them emotions, they're going to regret it. Okay? So that's real important, because with no squares or oppositions, like whatever momentum you build, the omniverse is going to offer very little resistance. Okay? So work it this year. Okay? All right. The moon is conjunct Uranus in the first house. This is not easy. This is not easy. Okay? The moon is our inner world. Everybody's moon, if we did all your charts, nobody's moon is going to be in the same place. And everyone's inner world is different. But I could guarantee you all one thing. Everyone wants the same for their inner world. And what is that? Peace. We want inner peace in our inner world. Y'all astrologers, you know what Uranus brings? What does Uranus bring?
Change. Sudden change.
Sudden change, chaos, the unexpected. Imagine if we knew what every day would bring. If every moment, what it would bring. Why live life? So we need random chaos as a part of life. But that's not easy. Right? We feel more secure when we can plan and have a vision that, day to day we build on. If our life is full of a whole bunch of random stuff, you might feel it's hard to feel secure. It's hard to, hard to plan. It's hard to keep your inner world at peace. This is going to be a challenge for us this year. It ain't going to be easy. The stage is set. First house, that random stuff is going to hit us personally. It's going to be hard to just, just wipe it off and keep it moving. The thing is, we take first houses where we take things personally. When the slap heard across the world, that thing was, you take that thing personally, right? That's first house. And Uranus, all of these is in Taurus too. So what does that tie in? Resources and finances are I haves. So emotional chaos due to financial instability may impact us personally this year. We see the stage set with the inflation. Elections is coming up this year, right? Well, they're going to start campaigning, right? Even though the actual elections in 24. All right, Uranus and Taurus brought about this whole smart home, smart car, everything push button, right? And it's becoming like our lifestyle now. Everything push button. This may impact us. In turn, first house is our sense of identity. If you in here and you culturally aware, something is active with your first house. First house is everything we say I am to. Right? So if you say I am conscious, I'm indigenous, I'm, whatever you say I am and identify with, that's your first house. Right? This technology might impact how we see ourselves and how we identify ourselves this year. I'd say minimize that smart technology. They might throw something out on that social media. We already see it on social media, right? Social media impacting how people see themselves and identify, right? But they might come out with some newer shit, this year that really gets people tripped out, feeling a void inside, feeling empty, no sense of self, right? So we got to watch that. Uranus brings our aha moments, our eureka moments, right? You at home cleaning the dishes, and then you get a sudden vision. You get the $1 million vision. Right? That's Uranus. And the moon has a lot of influence on what we call that intuition, that inner knowing. When you feel something in your gut, right? So keep something with you to capture your downloads. That's the thing with a eureka moment, with an aha moment. If you don't, right, let's say I'm at home washing dishes and I get that $1 million vision, but I don't stop right then and there, dry my hands and record it on my phone or journal it, right? Wifey sweating me, so I just want to get the dishes done so I don't have to hear her mouth, right? I finished the dishes. Damn, I forgot that. Damn. So if you journal, keep a little journal with you. If you make all your moves with this thing, put a voice record, have your voice recorded. Catch these aha moments, these eureka moments, right? But what's the thing about inspired thought?
They don't belong to you. Anybody can get an inspired thought.
Well, everybody gets inspired thought. What's the difference? What makes the difference? You gotta say it louder, brother. You gotta act on it. If you get in you get that eureka moment, you get that aha moment, and you ground it, act on it. Make some moves. Thank you. All right. Mars is in Gemini in the second house. This is the classic placement for I got my mind on my money and my money on my mind.
Okay.
Okay? Mars, second house is the house of money. Mars is where we put our action. Mars is like what we doing right here, right now. Right? What's got our focus? What's got our drive? What's got our ambition? But the reality is, though, is Mars is detriment in the second house. Mars rules the eighth house. Venus rules the second house. It's usually better when our values guide our money matters. Venus in our life is like, if we were to ask ourselves, what's really important? What's the most important thing in my life? How you answer that, that's your relationship to Venus. And it's usually best when those values drive how we spend our money. When Mars is in the second house, we could be impulsive. Act first, think later, right? Mars in second house, we could be greedy. Want more, just wanty, not when is enough. When Mars is in the second house, that's hard. It's hard to say, my cup is full, So, and Mars is in Gemini. Not easy.
And it's retrograde too.
It is. Thank you for pointing that out. And Uranus is retrograde. Both of these are. Right? Thank you because I wanted to mention that with Uranus. So it might be good to have someone that you can reflect money decisions. Right? And I would say, don't what they call that, spend, like when you see something, you just impulsive spending. Avoid, like right, someone heard your conversation, they put the ad on your phone, and before you even think that thing through, you pushing the button. No. All right. This would be a good year to somehow build space in between thinking about spending and actually pulling the trigger. All right. Watch out for mindless spending. Watch out for greed. But this may be a good year to get it in, if you watch those things, if you're mindful of those things, but yet your martial energy is focused on creating currency in your life, give thanks, Saturn in Aquarius in 11th house. It's exalted in both sign and house. So that means Saturn is going to be a prominent energy this year. Saturn's already been prominent this year because Saturn started this year in Aquarius, right? And yeah, I think it's just going to mean, for lack of more control. These impersonal controls, societal controls. This, it's going to feel like freedom is going to feel. We're going to feel less free this year, right? And again, that's why I'm thinking community level engagement is very important. Don't worry about the federal, but what's going on in your community? Who are the decision makers that are deciding what the police do? One thing I've heard in South Florida and here, like even the brother give thanks for House of Hathor, but the mayor, I hope I'm speaking correct, the mayor and city officials, when this brother moved into this beautiful space we in, they came here and did a ribbon cutting. That says the local elected officials value this brother's presence, right? This is the level we should be engaging in our community, because if it's someone we don't have no relationship with, it could have been the exact opposite. It could have been like, what?
Right.
They expanded? Nah, we gotta shut that down. You know what I'm saying? So, I think that'll be the best way to navigate the Saturn in Aquarius, 11th house. Both Neptune and Jupiter are going to be in the 12th house. Give thanks.
Yeah.
Even though Jupiter will not be in Pisces anymore. This right here, when Jupiter's in the 12th house, like on a natal chart, you really can't get no better than that. That's like, you're Israel. You're how everybody want to act like they God's chosen. Right? Right? We the one. We the one. Right? I would say astrologically, this is what says, yeah, you that one. You that one. That brethren there, I'm asleep right now, but you heard them prayers he chanted, right? Why? Because this man's Jupiter's in his 12th house. So for Jupiter to open the year in the 12th house, we might get grace from the omniverse. The will of the Most High is not for us to suffer, right? Angels do dwell amongst men. There might be grace, providence coming to us from ways we ain't really expect, So I've been told, don't count on your grace, right? Don't count on it. Like, move like you don't have no grace. But if you move in and some grace come your way, what? Give thanks. And this might be a year where that plays itself out. Okay? But we got Neptune and Pisces in the 12th house. It's been there. It's been in the 12th house for a couple of years. But I didn't block this sound for a couple of years. Star Nation's intervention. But I think this might be the year. And the reason why is not so much what's going on celestially, but like if you study that thing they call, what do they call that thing? Disclosure. Where there was a woman, damn, her name is escaping me. But it's all on you can check out The Heavens Are Open. And I even think I did a Star Nations update where we build on this. This woman dropped the tape. She studied with the founder of rocketry in the United States.
With the white hair.
Yes. I want to say her last name might be Rose. But no, that's Jordy Rose. I'm sorry. Just but the long and the short of it, she ran down what we would call the false flag alien invasion. She said there was going to be a number of like false enemies presented to us to make us, through our own free will, say, yeah, we need to weaponize. That the first false enemy was going to be the Soviet Union, right? Then the enemy after that was going to be terrorists. Then the enemy after that was going to be rogue nations. Then the enemy after that was going to be asteroids that are in Earth's potential orbit. So if we've been paying attention, we know the Soviet Union, terrorists, the rogue nations, they already ran them, right? What happened a couple of weeks ago? They shot an asteroid.
Yeah.
They shot an asteroid. They sent a satellite up with the intention of an experiment to try to knock the asteroid off its trajectory.
Camera footage.
To test out if the technology for deflecting satellites from hitting the Earth will work. It was a big news event, right? And she said after that, she said shortly after the asteroid enemy, they was going to run the false flag alien invasions, right? But it's also my understanding they were going to run the false flag alien invasion because the real Star Nations was coming. And they wanted to confuse us. Again, throw that fear factor into the equation, right? So it'll be interesting to see in 2023 how that thing plays out, right? Prison reform. When we hear prison reform, we think, oh, that's a good thing. They're letting cats out of prison and getting rid of the prison industrial complex. Wrong. It's turning into community-based prison where the community is the prison. Right? That's playing out in a lot of ways. Schools becoming prison. They want to weaponize teachers, have staff in there with guns, right? There's a whole lot of stuff going on in the schools. But it's reforming prison, making the community prison. Neptune in 12th house is a big part of all of that, right? Something else I've been observing with Neptune in Pisces, the psychonauts, this is y'all age. One's into mushrooms and, like I'm going deeper than Herb. It's bigger than Herb now, See, I'm smoking a J, like, what? Get that out of here. I want 5 grams, and that's the thing, they're not even dealing a gram. They're going in.
Kalindi vibes.
Yeah.
Kalindi
I'm
vibes.
seeing that. I'm like, this thing is getting big, right? But even though that's not my scene, really, I do see that, like we were at a MicroFest this summer. And one thing I would say, because it was all nation, races, and tongues there.
That's right.
But most people you encountered, they was on a singularity consciousness. I could tell they had done that psychonautic work on themselves. Most people you encountered, they were highly evolved. They ain't thinking polarity. You know what I mean? They weren't talking about other people and, you know? So give thanks, you know? All right, I mentioned this with Jupiter. Jupiter is exalted in the 12th house. There might be providence and divine intervention, but Jupiter in Aries is not easy. Aries is that I am, right? And Jupiter inflates wherever it goes. So we see this identity. Jupiter was in Aries the last part of this year. And we saw how identity politics was just off the chain. We already seen what 2023 is going to be about towards the end of this year, right? I'm this, I'm that. Like identity politics, identity, like you cancel because you challenge my identity and all of that. People inflated identities, egomaniac, and just being too stuck on self, right? It's bigger than us. It's bigger than what my man Ross said, bigger than Nino Brown. You know, it's bigger than us, bigger than individual self. So that's where we will have to grow and evolve this year if we want to be our best self. You know, don't get caught up in all of that. I'm this. Say what?
You talking like the pronoun?
All of that.
Like
The the pronoun consciousness.
The inmates.
That's it. I hope you know,
Wow.
hope gives y'all a good good relation. I heard another thing today. Time is relative, right? And what came to my mind when I heard that is that time is our relative, right? So I hope this helps your relationship with time for 2023.
Awesome.
Yes, sir. We can do some questions. What time is it? Real quick.
9:36.
9:36. So we got 15 minutes of questions. All right. Can we get the light, good brother? Yes.
You know, some of that reality he was describing reminded me of the movie Idiocracy. Corporations took over. Gatorade was the big deal. They didn't know how to use water.
Huh.
You know what I'm saying? So, movie Idiocracy, if y'all ain't seen it, that's kind of something like what Ras was building.
Corporate reality.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, Elder.
I thought it was kind of interesting, even though what I'm about to say, those people no longer with us on the physical realm. Both my parents were married on August 12th. My soon-to-be ex's mother was birthday was on August 12th, and she died on August 12th.
Wow.
This been several years ago now. And my parents' wedding anniversary was on August 12th.
Wow.
So it's like, okay, what's up with that?
That's a sync date for
The new year
you.
also raised, but I forget what the charts that you were saying about relative peace on January 1st. That's the last day of Kwanzaa, but there's a concept of Kwanzaa that a lot of people have forgotten or didn't pay attention to. It's called Siku Ya Tamuli. That Karina talked about. Siku Ya Tamuli means a day of meditation. And that stuck out for me when I saw that chart. We're supposed to be quiet.
Facts.
Give thanks. Yes, sister.
A couple of days ago, like I had, some of you said, Kanye is a really good example. Arrogance has become synonymous to being woke. All he does is consider himself someone who knows everything. I know Black people. I know that we can do this because of this. But in all honesty, those who really know something at all, we know nothing. There is no knowing everything because everything is everything. Without knowing the frequencies, you can't know, trees, grass, dirt. You can't know yourself because your chakras are frequencies. Everything is built off of that. But coming into 2023 and hearing about, like wars and stuff, even celestially, NASA is messing with frequencies. A couple years ago, there was a shift like within realms, and the shift that you've been saying, like kind of shifting us back. It was really thin, and kind of in the timeline of 2019 to 2023, like so much happened that we've never experienced before. We had never seen anything like the pandemic. Never seen anything. Our generation never seen world wars. Newest generation never seen all that. All of a sudden, we became history.
Yes. Give thanks. Yes, brother.
When you spoke about the 2023, 2044, I think you're onto something. When you said, who are we going to blame? Because I do see, just in my observations, especially if we look at algorithms, I think that's where we have to really pay attention to as well, because that's dictating, how things are going to play out as well. So that's who. Now, are we going to blame algorithms?
You're right.
That's what
Because them algorithms is having a big impact on our life, right?
Right.
But who's responsible for that? We are, because we
we
decided. I decided to get this phone.
Right.
I decided to get a YouTube channel, and so I'm dependent on the algorithm now. Yeah.
Will this presentation be on YouTube?
Yep. Sure.
John Willing, yeah. My good brothers from Pittsburgh recorded it, but I am gonna repeat this in Philly near the solstice.
Okay.
And I might even add a little more, if I get more inspiration in between that time. So if this one doesn't get on YouTube,
Okay. The solstice.
the solstice one, or maybe both,
Mhm.
that'll be a good look. All right. Yes, sister.
Are there any other astrology systems that you find relevant? Like, the Mayans go off the 13 system. Do you find any of that to be significant?
Yeah,
or
I
relevant?
studied the Mayan count of days. I feel it's like, how the microscope is. A microscope will have 3 different lenses. Depending on what you're looking at, you can flip that lens and get a clearer perspective. It's the same with different systems of astronomy. That every lens is a good lens, but it depends on what you're looking at, So, but for me, geocentric astrology, because it's the same issue with sidereal astrology, right? For me, the lens that works best is geocentered tropical astrology. That's what works best for me. But I honor them all.
I have one more question.
Yes.
I did some research, but I'm not sure if it applies or not. But is a fucus relevant to the zodiac that they say is associated with America or part of America? The 13th.
That's that 13th sign. All right, now I think the first astrologer was Enoch, the first prophet. You study the book of Enoch, you see astrology in the book of Enoch, right? And Enoch worked with 12. He didn't work with 13.
Okay.
So I'm gonna stick with the original. I'm gonna keep it simple. I'm not gonna add something or take nothing away. Yes, sir. Yes.
Ross, could you elaborate more on the U.S. Pluto return
Ooh,
that we
just
are
been going
in
through,
the
yeah,
midst
and
of.
right
We
now.
started, I think, an exact conjunction in February, right before the Russian invasion
Right.
in Ukraine, and it's in the United States' second house of commerce,
Yes.
business, and banking. And we are still going through the U.S. Pluto return.
We absolutely are. Thank you. Thank you. So remember we said Pluto deals with our relationship to truth and our relationship to power as like a person. Have I been using my power to hurt other people, to bully other people? That's called abuse of power, right? And what's my relationship with truth? Am I lying to myself? Am I like saying one thing to myself, right? But my actions aren't matching up to this truth untruth I'm telling myself, right? The U.S. has had to deal with all of that with its Pluto return, you know? And the U.S. tells itself, I'm the champion of freedom in the world. But there's more people incarcerated here than anywhere else, right? And I'm going to tell you a big way that thing manifests. Recent was the Brittany Griner thing. How dare this nation stand up and tell another nation, free somebody on some herb? I'm sure everyone in here, either directly or they got a family member, they got jammed up over some herb. Am I right? Right. So how can that's how Pluto throws the truth back on you, right? And so you saw, because Biden, this character, wrote the crime bill.
Yep. Back in the day.
Sponsored the crime bill that wreaked havoc on our communities. And Kamala Harris went from a state politician to a national politician as a senator by locking people up on weed in Cali. Right? So this is how Pluto works. These are the characters that are in charge, talking about free Brittany. All she had was a vape cartridge. Like, come on. You know? The truth, their relationship with truth, what they tell themselves, what they project out there versus what it really is, that thing slapped them in the face. Mm-hmm. So I think it was a week or two ago, they didn't switch up the laws, but they said, all federal herb use, anyone jammed up federally by herb, we're going to throw your cases out. They had to.
Is that before election?
How far back?
I think it's, right with those midterms. Right, because that's when the truth was really going to hurt them. You know, you talk a good game, but yeah, that was not a good look. You know what I mean? That's how Pluto return. That's an example of how the Pluto return hit the nation, right? How race relations got super relevant, you know, like this whole legacy of enslavement. But America's the land of the free. And how all that plays out. That thing is, you know, it's running politics now. It's running economics now. You know what I mean? So that's the Pluto return. The nation is dealing with how it's related to truth and power the past 260 years. That's how long it takes for Pluto to come full circle, about 260 years. So as it relates to the war, it may play out where how the U.S. considers themselves the leader of the free world, right? It might be a dethroning, you know? Yeah. That's very possible, you know? Yes, What's our time, y'all?
9:49.
One more. We're gonna seal it up with one question. Anybody got a next question?
How do you come about an astrological determination for entities, for places? I know with people specifically have.
Excellent question.
Yeah.
We have a birthday, right? Where we incarnate. Cities incorporate, states incorporate, nations have declarations of independence and constitutions drafted. So the U.S. birth date usually is assigned July 4th, 1776. All right. Even though actually the U.S. was born in the Treaty of Paris. You know, when like the United States was founded and recognized as other nations, as an actual nation, was the Treaty of Paris. I forgot the date offhand. But usually when people make a chart for the U.S., it'll be July 4th, 1776, Declaration of Independence, right? Cities, you have to research their incorporation date. Incorporation and incarnation almost mean the same thing. Coming into a body. A corporation is a body without a soul that is able to do business. That's Black Law's dictionary, right? And when you incarnate, you take your first breath in flesh, carn, like carnage. You know, that's coming into flesh, incarnate, incorporate, embodying, right? So that's an excellent question, though. And that branch of astrology is called mundane astrology. And cornerstones. When you find a building got a cornerstone with a date on it, right? That's the incorporation of that building, right? And Masons, you know how Masons found a lot of things, right? They pay great attention to that. They don't randomly incorporate something. They're specific.
They have their astrological input.
Yeah, man, they study this thing. They don't take it for granted. You know, they make sure that the time that they incorporate is aligned with the intention they plan with that thing. You know, so Miami, y'all are a Leo city. You were incorporated August 28th. Philadelphia is a Scorpio city. Was Columbia. Yeah. Y'all got your homework. Right? Yeah. You got your homework.
Pittsburgh, April 22nd, Taurus.
All right. Thank you. My man did his homework. We was in Pittsburgh in April. Yeah, that's right.
The day of
The decoding we did in Pittsburgh was on Pittsburgh's birthday.
yes.
What?
That's
When
how.
is it, April 22nd?
April 22nd.
That's how
That was the
aligned
year.
that was. You know. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
what's the year?
I think it was 1892,
I don't remember the year.
92 to 97, something like that.
Yes,
Something
yes.
something around something there. It was late, yeah.
Oh, was that late?
All right, y'all. Thank y'all.
Yes,
We're gonna honor with thanks for the house of Hathor. You want to say some words? 'Cause I know you're new here.
Giving thanks to Ras Ben.